China has sent dozens of warplanes towards Taiwan as the island prepares to hold anti-invasion military exercises. Taiwan will hold its annual Han Kuang exercise this week as the military holds drills preparing for a possible invasion. In a forceful display, China's PLA sent 37 aircraft and 7 Navy vessels. 22 of the warplanes crossed the median line. That's the unofficial boundary between the island and the mainland. Joining us live now for our regular Monday morning catch-up, Joe Siracusa. Joe, good morning to you. So, yeah, there's quite a bit of action there. 37 planes, 7 Navy vessels on the way just to show Taiwan what it's got at its disposal.
Good morning, Pete. Well, it's also designed to show the United States and the United States' friends and allies what it plans to do. So China is only about 100 miles from that from Taiwan anyway, so it's very easy to get to. Taiwan, I think, would be very hard to defend in terms of air power, but in terms of amphibious and landings and the like, I think Taiwanese could probably give them a go. You know, keep in mind the last time the Chinese fought anybody, the North Vietnamese beat them up. 1980s. So, you know, we're not actually looking at the world's great fighting force.
Yeah, I mean, but you've got this. I mean, this is all expected, isn't it? The fact that, and we're seeing that here too with Talisman Sabre, you've got the Chinese vessels off in the distance having a look at things, just reminding everybody to be careful. I mean, do you see it as a kind of threatening behaviour, or is it, you know, just observer status?
No, I think it's both threatening and observer status. Pete, this Talisman Sabre just kind of blows me away. You know, 82 years ago, the Australians were fighting Rommel and the Nazis at Tobruk, and they were fighting the Japanese in New Guinea. And 82 years later, everybody is on the same side, and it's this extraordinary triumph for diplomacy at the end of the day. And I think it's important. These exercises are important not only in terms of interoperability and cooperation, but they send important signals. Chinese are trying to send us signals to keep our hands off of Taiwan, and we're sending them signals that there's going to be a price to pay. And so, you know, it's a good thing that you have this kind of cooperation before there's a war. After a war starts, it's a little late to team up. But as the Romans like to say to us, Pete, if you want peace, you got to prepare for war. That's the paradox of it all.
No, that's very true. Now, Lloyd Austin and Antony Blinken on their way here this week. What comes out of that, do you think, Joe?
Well, the fact that they're here is a big deal. You got the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State. These are people who sit in the president's cabinet, are coming to Australia. I think Australia gets an enormous amount of attention these days. I mean, there was a time when I arrived here, you barely saw an ambassador who was a career ambassador. Mostly you had Cadillac dealers that knew Richard Nixon and things like that. This is a big deal. They're really paying homage to Australia, and you know, Australia has got an outsized figure in the United States. I mean, the United States is counting on Australia not only in terms of manpower and what else, but you know, in terms of its position in this neck of the woods. And the United States is going to have an Indo-Pacific position. It needs Australia. It needs these bases that are coming here. And this AUKUS thing is a big deal. I mean, the United States knows that too. So it's the next wave.
Yeah, even though some in the United States still pushing back against that, aren't they? Just to ensure that they've got their own supply.
Well, these boatyards can only produce so much. I mean, it's not like people grow up thinking, I'm going to go work at a boatyard. I mean, these boatyards have very limited production. Australia comes along and says, you know, we're going to take this, this, and this. And the United States wants to sell them these things. And this AUKUS thing is going to take about 30 years to mature, but you got to start somewhere. But I think Austin, who's a very impressive Secretary of Defense, and Antony Blinken, I think is a little bit out of his league sometimes when he goes up against the Chinese and the Russians. You know, he's a very cool type of diplomat, and they're showing their respects to Australia. And look, Australia needs all the friends it can get. I thought, you know, years ago, I thought that Australia's strength lies in its position in the corridors of power. Australia plays the role for all it's worth.
But Henry Kissinger hasn't made it this far, Joe.
Well, Henry Kissinger once said that he would come to Australia if it was on his way to New Zealand or the South Pole. He he didn't make many trips in this direction.
Yeah.
He used to see things in terms of geopolitics, but keep in mind, he made his career in European politics and detente with Russia, and then he shifted to China in the early 1970s. And to be fair to Kissinger, he did take Taiwan off the table for a generation by agreeing in the Shanghai Communique that there was only one China, and Taiwan was part of it, provided the Chinese did not heavy them, and provided the Chinese didn't heavy them, and provided the Taiwanese did not affect an independent foreign policy. So
Yeah.
he did pretty well in his day.
Yeah, and he's still going there in Beijing last week. 100 years old now, Henry Kissinger. And as I said, still going. Appreciate that, Joe. Thank you.